Hello again and welcome to Wassen's Wellness Corner. My name is Wassen Shaied. I'm a clinical social worker licensed to practice on an advanced level. I have experience working in the hospital emergency rooms where we frequently see victims of intimate partner abuse. As you well know, the best remedy and the strongest weapon that we have against this rising tide of intimate partner abuse is education. So today we will be providing education about intimate partner abuse as well as updating what's already known about intimate partner abuse, also called domestic violence, spousal abuse, rough sex, and many other names too numerous to mention at this point. I always like to start off with a concise definition of what it is that we're talking about. Exactly what is intimate partner abuse? Intimate partner abuse occurs whenever one partner in the relationship decides to enforce power and control over the other partner by using coercion, violence, deception, deceit, or a combination of tactics to control the other person. Intimate partner abuse is not new. Originally, it was thought of and considered a family matter, not a criminal one. However, Congress passed the VAWA Act in 1994, a piece of legislation penned by Joe Biden, then a congressman, that made it against the law to abuse women. Meet Sean and Maggie. As you can see in this slide, Sean has Maggie pressed against the stove in their kitchen. They allowed a Times photographer named Sarah Linkowitz to take pictures and to chronicle the domestic violence in their home. This information was used in order to empower law enforcement to make domestic violence or intimate partner violence a crime rather than a family matter. Shane later pleaded guilty to domestic violence and was sentenced to 9 months in jail. These photographs and other evidence led researchers and clinicians to develop the ability to identify 3 specific phases of domestic violence abuse that may occur quickly or over time. It depends. The cycle of violence in intimate partner abuse can be divided into 3 very specific phases. Phase 1 is the tension building phase. Phase 2 is the eruption phase. And phase 3 is the honeymoon phase. For a moment, think about phase 1. In the tension building phase, it is characterized by verbal abuse and behavioral signs of irritation on the part of the abuser, triggered by minor incidences and irritations. However, the victim, sensing this is going to be an episode of violence, begins to walk on eggshells, literally trying to regain control of the situation to prevent the episode of domestic violence to come. This problem is compounded if drugs and alcohol are being abused at this time. The second phase is the explosion phase. In this phase, the actual abuse occurs and the victim will be pushed, shoved, choked, punched, kicked, etc. During this phase, the abuser may also inflict verbal abuse, financial abuse, sexual and emotional abuse, all in the context of the explosion phase. Over time, the severity of the abuse tends to increase. This is not an absolute statement. In some cases, it doesn't, but in most cases, it does. The third phase is the honeymoon phase. In the honeymoon phase, the abuser is very affectionate, very apologetic, the kind of, oh, what have I done type syndrome. He seems sad, makes promises to never, ever do this again, and usually ends with passionate make-up sex. Passionate make-up sex may be the payoff. If possible, it is best to prevent domestic violence by taking precautions to avoid relationships that will produce violence. We have identified steps to take in order to safeguard yourself against getting involved in abusive relationships. The first step is to avoid romantic involvement with unhappy people. A deceptively simple concept. However, it is best to avoid becoming romantically involved with someone that you're aware of is taking medications, has a history of legal issues that seems to be odd or different in many ways. The second thing you can do is trust your intuitions and be alert about things that don't feel right, that don't seem right. Use the technique that we call rethinking. At first glance, the world seems flat, but on closer observation, we find that it's round. Rethinking can often help us move beyond initial first impressions. The third thing you can do is to be open to feedback from others, family, friends, coworkers, anyone who brings it to your attention that they've noticed something odd or something different or something that's not quite right with the person. And as much as possible, do your research. Ask questions about things that seem odd or different or unusual. You can also help yourself by strengthening your mind, your body, your spirit. Strengthening your mind by thinking outside the box. Strengthen your body by doing exercise. Make it a point to do some sort of physical exercise every day. And your spirit, make sure that you avoid allowing yourself to be depressed, down in the dumps, upset, disenchanted. Remember, life is in session and there will be those challenges. And be aware of anger management issues that you notice in a person that you're interested in. If you notice they have quick tempers, their conversation is laced with profanity, and they put you down and say things that are unflattering about you, even in the context of joking, these may all be red flags or precautions that you could take in order to prevent getting more deeply involved in a potentially abusive relationship. We have no accurate profile of an abuser. An accurate profile of an abuser simply doesn't exist. Some of the most violent abusers may be very attractive, may be rich, may be charming, may be likable, all the things that you thought you were looking for in a relationship. In the beginning of the relationship, they are all things desirable. but slowly and gradually become more aggressive and more possessive of you as time passes. Here is one survivor's story. Some of the early warning signs are suspicions that the victim is flirting and even accusations that they're cheating with someone else, demeaning the victim with ridicule and shame, especially in front of others, taking the victim's money, restricting their freedom, and most of all, force and pressure during sexual encounters. Telling the victim that they are bad, worthless, and terrible people for even thinking about ever breaking up with them. Telling them they can't live without them, even threatening to harm or kill them or loved ones, children, parents, etc., if they ever leave or attempt to break up. Our problem as clinicians in the treatment community is the code of silence. The code of silence is manifested by the victim not divulging to first responders or people in the helping profession that they are being abused. Intimate violence is the leading cause of injuries and death to women between the ages of 14 and 48. Research findings indicate 50% of all women will be victims of some form of violent abuse from their spouses, fiancés, or boyfriends. Intimate partner abuse, the sexual revolution. A revolution is defined as a dramatic change in ideas or practices. Intimate partner abuse, the sexual revolution. A revolution is defined as a dramatic change in ideas or practices. In the sexual revolution context, pain is now being described as exhilarating, a source of happiness, a source of excitement, a source of arousal, and is usually presented as role-playing, bondage games, sex play, and many other names. One domestic violence survivor described her partner as very slick, very convincing, and very smart. In conclusion, I want to leave you with the thought that as a society, we are slowly and gradually being conditioned to accept pain and suffering as part of the latest normal sexual behavior, instead of as perverse or deviant behaviors. Even the recent fad of body piercing contains aspects of BDSM behavior. BDSM is the acronym that stands for bondage, discipline, dominance, submissive, and sadomasochism. Please allow me to be totally honest with you. Don't be fooled. Rough sex is code for softcore sadomasochism, or S&M. Examples are erotic spankings, tickling, biting. The problem is compounded when drugs and alcohol are being abused in these games. I want to thank you for your time, and I want to say farewell. Thanks again for joining us in this webinar. See you next time in Wassen's Wellness Corner. If you like this webinar, please leave a comment. Thank you and good day.